Hey, welcome back, guys. Robert Rule of Two Review here, and today I have some things to say about the next generation. Okay, first, let me get one cool thing out of the way, and that is that as I've been talking about lately, my subscriptions for the channel Rule of Two Review have slowly been growing over the last few months since I started the channel. And I just recently, this past week, finally crossed 100 subscribers. Yay! What a great feeling that is. For me, that's a totally momentous thing. That feels really, really great. So thank you guys so much for the few of you out there who have subscribed and maybe followed the videos in the channel. And I've been getting a lot of really positive feedback from the occasional feedback that I get lately. And man, I just cannot tell you how good it feels. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. As I had been saying over the past few weeks, I knew that when I finally crossed 100 subscribers, I wanted to do something kind of cool, like a little contest prize or something to give back to you guys. And I definitely want to follow through with that. So what I've decided to do is to help also promote the Facebook, because I do have a Facebook page for Rule of Two Review, which I mostly just post the videos and the occasional question trying to get people to interact in the community. What would be awesome is if you were to go and like the Facebook page, which of course I have a link to that below every single video I post. Like the page, and I'm going to leave a little post of myself, something referring to the contest. Within that post, if you were to leave a comment stating which of the 3 next generation consoles, or 4, even PC, so between the Xbox One, Wii U, PlayStation 4, and PC, which of those is your favorite gaming platform currently, or will be, seems to be the most exciting going forward, and why? And if you were to leave that comment, I will pick the one that I think is my personal favorite, and then I will contact you via Facebook, and I will be sending out a $30 gift card to GameStop. I figure that's kind of cool, so why not get some free money for some free video games? You know, I think that'd be a really great way to show my appreciation for your guys' support. How important it is to me and how good it feels just to cross 100 subscribers. As of this recording, I have 104 subscribers. I can't even tell you, that feels fantastic. So maybe one day I'll get to 1,000. Who knows? Anyway, go ahead and do that. Provided I get at least 10 comments, I'm going to go ahead and follow through, and I'll make sure to get a prize to you guys, and I'll pick my favorite. If you know me or follow the channel, you do know that Nintendo is my favorite company, and the Wii U is easily my favorite of the next-gen platforms. However, I will not be biased. I promise you that. I don't want you to think I'm just going to pick the person that would pick the Wii U, because I love the Wii U the most. I have nothing against the other 2 platforms, and I do use my PC for gaming, so I'm really just going to pick the comment and the description that I think is the coolest or the funniest or the most appropriate. That's what I'm going to do. So anyway, long story short, go like the Facebook page, leave the comment about your favorite next-gen system. Hopefully you'll win a $30 gift card. And yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. It feels really, really awesome. You guys rock. Okay, so today's video is something that wasn't inspired by news. It's kind of just one of my little Robism philosophical conversations, because sometimes we don't have to get so invested in something that is specifically about an exact news story or something going on in the industry. Sometimes we just like to theorize and get into the depths of what gaming is and what it means, and, you know, like I said, not have to be relegated just to a news story. And I feel that same way when it comes to my videos. So what I want to talk about is I've kind of had this conversation, this thought in my mind for a while, several months, maybe a year, longer than a year. It's been a while, but it's really come to a boil the last few months since now that all 3 of the next generation consoles are out. And they're available, and there's been all sorts of different dialogue back and forth amongst gamers about all different facets of gaming, and this about this system and that about that system, and all this kind of thing going on. It's a bunch of scuttlebutt rumors, hearsay, conjecture, and of course, not surprisingly, a lot of it is negative. And so, there's been some recent things I've been reading on the internet that I'm not going to go into, but a lot of things have gotten me to this point that I've just read and watched in the last couple of days that made me realize I really needed to get this out and talk about this on a video. And the general idea, I'll give you an idea of what it was that really set me off to make this video, which is that when looking at the next generation, a very current conversation is very specifically between the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, because they just recently came out and they are so similar in structure compared to what the Wii U is. Like that's kind of that's sort of the outside kind of approach to gaming currently is what the Wii U is doing. But the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are the same basic idea. They're the same basic idea we've been doing in gaming for the last several generations, only slightly better. And amongst themselves, they're very similar. And so in this conversation was this talk about, developers preferring the PlayStation 4 to the Xbox One as their main platform. And, the fact that, things are running and looking a little bit better on the PlayStation 4 compared to the Xbox One. Granted, it's just a small amount, but still that's the case, And so what I started to take away from that, I have to kind of focus my thoughts because I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, you guys. What came to my brain is the fact that people compare those two systems specifically and they dog the one that's just the little teensiest bit less powerful than the other because what they have to compare are specifically these cross-platform games, these games that are coming out on all three platforms, or those two specifically, or what have you. And there's always a comparison between one or the other. Now, this brought my thought process to the fact that we've always had more than one system. Going back to the NES, there's always been 2, 3, 4 systems sometimes on the market at the same time. And a lot of times you're getting games that are coming out across all those platforms and you're going to get varying levels of quality. One platform is going to run it better than the others and vice versa. Or there's some things better on one platform compared to that same game on another platform, but then they have other ones that are better that the other one doesn't do. And, all this BS. And that's fine. Like we've been doing that forever and that's never really been a big deal. This conversation is becoming a very big deal currently with this generation. And I think that why it's becoming a bigger deal now is one of the things that I'm lamenting and not enjoying about where I think I see this next generation go. And very specifically the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I know I'm singling them out as a super huge Nintendo fan, but don't forget, Nintendo's my favorite company, but I love Sony to death. And I don't love Microsoft to death, but I like Microsoft. And as of right now, I actually want an Xbox One more than a PlayStation 4, which is crazy, but that is the case. So, I have a fairly equal love for everybody. So I do think that what Nintendo is doing is the right thing. Now, with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, the reason this is becoming a problem is how these two systems are merging together so closely. And something very indicative of that is the fact that all we're getting are games coming out, mostly what we're getting is games coming out on both systems. And I think that's all we're considering in the near future. We don't seem to have we have no exclusives really on each system that we're thinking about too deeply right now. Yes, we know a Halo is going to come. That's already been announced at least. We've had nothing about a Gears of War, which is an exclusive. We have an Uncharted announced for PlayStation 4. We don't know much about it, but it's announced. We know eventually a God of War, a Little Big Planet, and those kind of things will come, and those exclusives will come to those systems. But as of right now, all we're doing is we're looking at the Assassin's Creeds and the Splinter Cells and the Call of Duties and the Battlefields and the Tomb Raiders and all these things, and many of them going forward. And all we're looking at is games coming out on both systems. So what we're doing is, let me think of how to phrase this. We're losing the identity of each system. I've always been a huge proponent of exclusives matter, and they should sell you a system because they give that console its identity. It is the reason I love Nintendo the most. Obviously, if I believe in that philosophy and the fact that Nintendo is most well known for its first party software. And even when their hardware doesn't appeal to a lot of people, or even when they make some stupid mistakes business or marketing wise, at the end of the day, their software always reviews through the roof, sells wonderfully, and the people who play it love it to death. So their first party exclusive stuff has always worked. And that's why even through their mistakes, I still love Nintendo the most. And it's why I also really like Sony, because they obviously have a lot of good exclusives, exclusive franchises and first party stuff themselves. And so I like that. I love that about them. And I love those franchises. But they're not really a factor right now in this next generation currently. And it doesn't seem like they're going to become a factor anytime soon. And I just kind of, don't love the fact that these two systems are morphing into this nebulous singular blob. Yes, the Kinect is this huge segregation factor for the Xbox One. I get that, but it's not really that big of a difference when you look at the fact that they do the same thing and they have the same functions. They do the same like Twitch streaming stuff, which is cool, but it's like they're focused on that. They're focused on video and TV applications, and they're focused on releasing 90% the exact same games on both platforms. Now, that sucks that we're looking at, mostly a library that's on both platforms. So right now, there's no flippant identity between those two. There just isn't. The only identity they do have is that they're not what Nintendo is doing. Nintendo is basically releasing almost exclusively exclusives. Yes, they have Watch Dogs and a few other things coming out, and they've had like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty and stuff, and will, but they still have mostly exclusives coming out selling that system to people. And that's why people are finally starting to get excited about it. Thank God. It took a while because Nintendo did fuck up for a year, but they're over that now and good things are happening. So, removing Nintendo from this conversation about Sony and Microsoft, their systems are becoming the same thing because their libraries are the same. Now, that's already a problem, okay? Because, again, where's the identity between the two? But let's remove that factor because, as I've said, we've always had multi-platform games. A lot of those games have also come out on the Wii U and will continue to as well. So if we try not to focus on getting upset about the fact that they have almost the same library, here's where the other problem comes into play. Is that because of how we're looking at this next generation, which is now basically the current generation with all three systems out, all these games coming out on the same system, obviously there's always going to be one of the three running it better than the other two, just like it's always been ever. That's always been the case. There are three, one will be better than one will be better than two, and then two will be better than the other one, and then that's just the way it's going to be. But the problem is, because we're looking at these two systems that are so similar, and we know one is a little bit more powerful, and they have almost nothing right now or in the near future that will be separating their libraries with exclusives, we only have the identical libraries to compare, in which case the system that is going to be running these games slightly better, i.e. the PlayStation 4, is going to be viewed as the great system, and the Xbox One has to now be viewed as the shit system, and everybody's crapping all over the Xbox One because, its Tomb Raider doesn't run quite as well, and its Call of Duty doesn't run quite as well, and yada, yada, yada. Okay, so I get that that's a fact. The PlayStation 4 is a little bit more powerful. Its games maybe look and run a little bit better. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I would prefer to play those versions too, probably. That makes sense. However, it doesn't have to be a negative slight towards the Xbox One just because of that, because there's always going to be a number two. There's always going to be systems that aren't running the best versions of games that the number one is running. But and so what I think that what I'm ultimately trying to get, like I said, I know I'm really struggling to focus my points here, so I feel like I'm all over the place with this topic, guys. So forgive me if this is not an entertaining subject, but like I said, I just needed to get this out. So the ultimate crux of this conversation that I'm trying to get at is that if those two systems specifically, again, Nintendo has almost all exclusives, so they're removed from this conversation. But if the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One had more exclusives either currently or very soon on the way that we knew about and had scheduled on our radar in the near future, it wouldn't really, I don't think that people and gamers would probably be dissecting these multi-platforms so closely, nor would they be using them to define the respective systems. What's happening, what it took me 11 minutes to basically get you here is the fact that since all we have are the same game releasing, primarily on these systems, we're using which versions of the 90% of the same library of games run better on which system to determine which system is good and which system is straight up bad. People are saying the Xbox One is straight up bad simply because Tomb Raider was 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 4 and 30 on the Xbox One. There's nothing wrong with the 30 frames per second Tomb Raider. That's a completely fine thing if the game rocks and looks good. And guess what? It rocks and it looks good. Maybe it's a little bit better on the PlayStation 4. Awesome. Buy that version. Support it. Whatever. But it doesn't mean the Xbox One has turned into this huge pile of shit. I get that Microsoft fucked up for a long time before that system came out, but we're over that now, man. They're fixing it. They're working on it. Let's calm down. And here's why I have yet to really invest in a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One yet. And it's because even though I know that I will want them eventually, they're not exciting right now. And it's because they don't have exclusive content that's selling me. Yes, I want to play Infamous, and yes, I'm dying to play Titanfall, and it is why I'm going to buy an Xbox One, because I don't want to play that on my PC personally. So there's those two good games. There's one for each game system right now that's a good exclusive, and that's great, but it's not enough. And because because these systems aren't releasing exclusives, it's been my complaint about this next generation this whole time, is that everyone's chasing the PC market and there's no identity except for Nintendo. They may alienate themselves from some people with what they do, but at least they try and at least they give themselves an identity. This industry would be, I can't even fathom how boring and cardboard cutout it would feel without a company like Nintendo. And there's a few other companies that do it, but Nintendo is a little bit different in the sense that they don't only make software, but they are one of the three major hardware players and the oldest one currently. They are the kings of the industry. And they kind of earned that because they still I mean, they probably could have taken the easy road out many times with the Wii and with the Wii U. They could have said, you know what, we can make like really like the most powerful hardware. We can release another regular controller and we could just be what the other guys are and just keep releasing our games on that. They could have done that, but that would have been like the easy way out. I mean, really step back and look at it going back to 2005 before the Wii came out and then 2010 and 11 before the Wii U came out. Like, they could have done that stuff, you know, but they chose not to. And I think that is the good thing. Some people, like I said, it alienates them from some people who are like, well, I don't care about a gimmicky controller and it's not as powerful as the other system, so I don't give a shit. And like, I think that's unfortunate for you if you look at it that way, but that's fine. It's your right to look at it that way. So I won't necessarily harp on you for it. But you know, what they're doing is giving themselves an identity. Sony and Microsoft right now, two companies who, like I said, I like them and I want to own their systems. They don't have an identity right now. Again, now I'm 15 minutes in and I'm getting to another point I wanted to get to, which is that they are losing their identity when we're having to compare these minute differences between the same versions, between the same game, only different versions on the two platforms, because it's almost all we have to compare those two systems. In another few years, we may have a whole slew of exclusive, a large exclusive library for the PlayStation 4 and a large exclusive library for the Xbox One, that when comparing all the systems together, and specifically those two, it'll be way easier to say maybe the Xbox One will be looked at as the better system if they actually have a better exclusive library. The fact that their multi-platforms don't run as good as the PlayStation 4s will hopefully not matter. And that's how it should be. That's how it always should have been. That's how gaming always used to be back in the day. And we've kind of lost that with this next generation. And I just think that that's so sad. That's what I'm getting at. I love Nintendo. I love Sony. I love Microsoft. And it's sad to me that we have to say these things about these guys, about these companies, and the way they're releasing their hardware right now. Don't lose your identity. Don't try to become the same thing. You know, I mean, I know it takes time after you release a system to have games and content available when it's your own stuff. I get that. Nintendo was a good example where it took them 8 or 9 months to finally start getting good games out. And that hurt them, you know, that totally hurt them. Sony has been lucky in that they've been riding this awesome hype train that's kept them very successful, even through a drought of games and content. Microsoft is in like the gray area, you know, and Nintendo's only now just getting out of that gray area. So it's just really interesting to see how it all turns out for everybody. The bottom line is, okay, I'm going to wrap this up now, so thank you for sticking to the end of the video. The bottom line is, I'm sad that Sony and Microsoft specifically don't seem to have much of an identity. Like I said, I like to think that we know excellent games are going to be coming that are exclusives and that are going to continue to basically give their systems an identity and tell people why you want to buy an Xbox One at this point, or you want to buy a PlayStation 4 at this point. Because look at all these games that only we have. That's how you sell a system. I don't give a shit if one Netflix application is better than another one's Hulu application. Fuck that. I don't care. That's great. I'll use Netflix sometimes, but that's not what I buy my gaming systems for. So if you're selling it off of Twitch TV and Netflix, you're making a big mistake, and it's not going to pan out down the road. Sell us on games, please. God damn it. You show us games we want, we will give you money, we will throw it at you, and we will love you for it. We will revere you and make memes celebrating your excellence on the internet and post it on forums. And you will be loved like Miyamoto. Like, you can all do that. It's possible. You just got to release the games we want. You know, I was yelling at Nintendo about this. You know, they weren't exempt from my fury either. Fury, quote unquote. They weren't exempt from it either, you know, like a few months after the Wii U came out and all there was Zombie U and Monster Hunter. I was like, I need some games, man. But eventually they released games, so it's good. And hey, eventually the PS4 and the Xbox One will release games, and that will be fine. But right now, that's not the case. There's no identity. So basically, because it's so early, people need to not be so mad at the Xbox One. Is that a point I was trying to make? Probably. I don't know. Like I said, this philosophical shit goes all over the place. I know that I was scatterbrained as hell in this video, and I probably was touching on a lot of topics. But I feel very strongly and passionately about it, as I'm sure you do as well. I'm sure that's why you listen and watch my videos and others on the internet who talk about similar subjects. All three have different advantages. All three give them time, good things happen. And let's just love everybody and hope that they all establish an identity down the road, because that's what makes us love all these different gaming companies. Alrighty guys, well that's it for the next generation Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo news for today. Of course, if you like what I'm doing and you like Rule of Two Review, then you can feel free to subscribe, like, and share the video, and share your comments and your thoughts about anything I talked about today below. Don't forget, the contest is happening, so you can go to the Facebook page, also linked below, like the Facebook page and follow it. Leave a comment about your favorite next generation platform, Wii U, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or PC, and why you love it in that comment. And provided I get at least 10 responses, I will pick my favorite and I will contact you and send you a $30 gift card to GameStop. That's pretty badass, I feel. Free money for free video games. You can never argue with that. So, of course, thank you guys so much for your support so far, just 4.5 months in. Feels really good to have you guys following. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time.